Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tokyo. In this episode, I'm going to take one of the questions that I received from a viewer and discuss about money and travel in Japan. This is one that I get quite often, so I thought this would be great just to address it straight on. The question is coming from Tracy. Hi, John. I'm a bit late to the party with my question. I'll be in Japan at the end of November. Should I come to the country with some yen on me, or can I just get what I need when I arrive? Thanks. Love the channel. Thanks for the constant content. Well, thank you for that question. And look, I think this is a question that a lot of people might be answering in the comments below as well as in the live chat here. And I welcome you guys. If you have something to add to it, please chime in here in the live chat as well. Look, I kind of think that you should bring some yen with you before you arrive into Japan. I'm not sure, but the airports typically don't have very favorable rates for the exchange windows, the currency exchange windows. So that's not something that I would recommend much at all, but it's better. Nobody uses traveler's checks. Is this true? It seems like because credit cards and plastic and ATMs are just about everywhere. The last time I used a traveler's check was I think 2003, and it gives you some kind of security in case you lose cash, but now a lot of people don't even bring cash with them, so it's not such an issue anymore. You basically just take out as much cash as you need. So I think per day, like a safe amount of yen that I typically have on my person, that's like a cop term, isn't it, on your person? I typically would have like 22,000 yen. When I go to the ATM, for some reason, I always take out 22,000 yen. That's roughly what, like $140 or something like that. And that should be enough pocket change to get you through any kind of a situation that you think you might need in Japan. And you might not need any more than that. Like if you go to a food truck, for example, or a convenience store or a vending machine that doesn't take the IC cards, you're gonna need to have some pocket cash with you. But I find myself less and less using cash. Credit cards seem to be the way to go. It depends on the credit card that you're using. The transaction fees that they charge per credit card sometimes are a lot higher, so you really have to check about this. And then of course the ATMs here, there are more and more of them. This is Mizuho. This is a Japanese bank. More and more of them are starting to take international ATM cards because they know they can get some money off of charging tourists a couple of dollars off of it. So why don't we just give the services? For the longest time, you could not use international cards at Japanese ATM. For some reason, Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ would accept the Discover card. Like, what? But now they're pretty much all standard now, especially the newer ones that are color, which is pretty amazing. You can also get coins out of the vending machine, out of the ATM machines. This is a typical Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ. I didn't take this picture. This comes from the internet. This is a typical ATM machine. You're looking down onto it because if you're looking up, there's more privacy. If you're looking down, like in this, apparently they have like fingerprint scanners. I've never used this, but the right side is for your card. It says Kado. You can see it. There's actually a graphic picture for your card. You'd put your ATM card in there. It's so big, you're not gonna have any problem with skimmers in Japan, that's for sure. Like you can tell right away. And then on the left side, there's a place for your tsucho or your bank book, which you don't have, so you don't need to worry about that. You just put the card on the right side, which makes sense. Typically, the ATMs in Japan on the right side, you'll get your bills, and most of the ATMs on the left side have one for coins. So again, you can get out an inexact amount of money from Japanese bank ATMs, which is kind of cool. The vestibules will look like this. You'll see this is Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ, my bank from a while ago. And you can see that's what an ATM place looks like. And they'll usually say this one doesn't, whether or not they take international cards. But I'm pretty sure most of them do now. It's not too much of an issue. So I went in to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. And of course that there's also 7 Bank, which is 7-Eleven, which is everywhere in Japan. You can get Japanese yen from these as well. So if you take a look at this here, you can see that it has 27,000 ATMs all over the country. And you can get Visa, MasterCard, American Express, JCB, Discover card as well. And it's actually at the airports too. You can see here it's at the airports and department stores and supermarkets. A lot of them also have ATMs in these outlets as well. So again, you don't have to worry. The 7-Eleven ones seem to be on all of the global networks. This was never the case though in Japan. They always had their own way to do things, so it's a pretty recent phenomenon to be able to get cash out from a Japanese ATM. And still, for me, it's quite new. I'm not really used to that. It's true. I don't have to exchange. I don't use any U.S. cards in Japan because I have Japanese cards, so I don't need to do that. I didn't want to miss anything with this. I'm taking a look at your chat as well, but here I asked ChatGPT, is it better to change money in Japan or use credit cards ATM as a tourist? And the answer is that gave me the pros and cons, of course, so I could stop it here. The pros of credit cards are obvious. They're accepted in cities, particularly hotels, larger restaurants, department stores, and tourist areas. I agree. And you can often get favorable exchange rates from your credit cards. That's very true. Usually, MasterCard and Visa will charge a 1% international exchange rate, and then whatever the bank you're using will tack on another 2% on that. So typically, the favorable rates will be about 3%. The unfavorable rates will go from like 3.5% to 5%, or sometimes even higher. Before you leave for your trip, make sure you check the information on the credit card page, or ask your bank how much they tack on top of the Visa and the MasterCard. Again, Visa, MasterCard adds something on there from what I understand, and the bank will tack on a percentage for international exchanges. And some of the credit cards don't have any, but they might just have 1%, which is what Visa and MasterCard do. A lot of people say that Chase card is one of the best ones for those in the US. Some of the cons, out in the countryside, I'll tell you this, because of Square and some of the other modern technologies, more and more the Japanese countryside has credit card availability. It's actually quite rare not to have that. Even the convenience stores in the countryside take credit cards. The taxis, every now and then a taxi will have a problem with the connection, so they'll say, sorry, we only take cash and not credit card, and then you'll be very thankful that you took out 22,000 yen, which is what I usually take out just in case. You always want to have some cash on you in those kinds of situations. But again, make sure when you go into a hotel in the countryside that they take your credit card, and if you don't, you can go to a 7-Eleven or a convenience store or a post office and get the cash to pay for your hotel, for example. You don't want to be stuck in one of those awkward situations. But it is true that sometimes in the countryside you won't get it. ATMs, that's another story. Some of the ATMs will charge you for the transaction. It's not like Wawa in the United States. Wawa, it wants to get people into the store so they don't charge a transaction fee, which is really smart because I go into Wawa's all the time when I'm on the East Coast of the US. But I don't know about 7-Eleven, but I'm thinking that the processing charges are not going to be that much. But I don't know if your bank also charges it, so this is something that you need to really look. I think by law, the Japanese ATM has to tell you whether or not how much they're charging, and the periods of time. For me, my bank at the 7-Eleven ATM, it tells me during this time it's free, during this time, like on the weekends, it's 250 yen, and during this time it could be like 300 yen. I can't remember the totals exactly, but it should tell you what the machine is charging you, and you should know what your bank is charging you. But other than that, you're almost always going to be getting the most favorable rate from ATMs. And since around 1999, when I was backpacking on my second trip, I used my credit card as an ATM. I think I told some of you guys this story. A couple of weeks before I left, I would send a check. You can't do this anymore. I'd send a check to my credit card, like $2,000 more, and then I'd be able to take that cash out off of my credit card, not as a cash advance, but as cash that the bank owes me because they accepted my check. So I didn't get any fees on that. That worked for a very long time, but I don't think you can do that now. But maybe you can, I don't know. Talk with your bank. The exchange rates are usually good with ATMs. The cons, ATM availability, that was a problem, but with convenience stores, including Lawson's and Family Mart, taking foreign cards, it's not so much of an issue, and we don't know the fees, something you have to work out in advance. Exchanging cash, the pros, you get the cash. There it is. But the pros, of course, you can get that right at the port of entry. I don't see too many cash exchanges outside of the cities at all. once in a while at a train station, but very rarely because there's just not enough tourists to operate a booth like that. In Shibuya, Shinjuku, Akihabara, you'll find currency exchange places, including currency exchange vending machines, and we've dismissed those as being really the worst rate of them all. It's the most convenient way, but it's also the worst way because the exchange rates were sometimes up to 15 yen per dollar worse than if you just gone to an ATM. So it's like, that's like if you got to exchange 1,000 yen to get something right away, maybe you would use that. But again, you probably should have enough money to cover that kind of stuff. Exchange counters often have competitive rates, and Japan tends to have more favorable rates for currency exchange compared to some countries. That's probably true, but then again, each place could, you really have to check out the fine print before. Some of them might have like a upfront, like 500 yen fee plus 3% tacked onto that or something like this, or the exchange rate if you're not checking on your smartphone to see what it is for the day. For right now, Michael Sasana's in the house. Right now the exchange rate is 143.49 to the dollar. It's at a low and it's going down because the Japanese economy is getting stronger. So I don't think it's going to be getting back up to 160 anytime soon. I'll have to get a snack for you. As you can see, just over the last several years, since the beginning of the year. Hold on a second. This is just 5 days. So the last 5 days, it's starting to trend down, and so I don't think that the yen is going to be. I think the yen is going to get weaker and weaker. Stronger and stronger against the dollar. The yen is going to become, I think, 135 to the US dollar by the end of the year. It just seems like the US economy is in a better position than the Japanese economy is getting into a better position, and the US economy again is like more standard, so we're seeing the fluctuations in yen based on that. Yeah, and the Prime Minister stepping down may be a good thing for the yen, bring some more confidence into the government. So there you go. I think that this is the cons was interesting here. You might have leftover yen, which you could use for gachapon, but that's also an issue because when you change the money back into dollars, you're getting tagged again for another percentage of money off of that hard-earned money that you got. So the best is to budget your money effectively. And I think the best one is the recommendations. Use a mix, a small amount of cash for immediate needs, as I said, like a taxi or something, and places that won't accept your credit cards. There's going to be a ton of them, and utilize your credit card whenever possible. I don't think, work this out before you leave for your trip. First of all, you probably should tell your credit card that you're going internationally, because we've had viewers that have told me that their bank shut down their card because they saw international transactions and they weren't sure if that was me or not, because I'd never traveled abroad. So make sure maybe you get in touch with your bank, tell them you're traveling to Japan, ask them about their fees, and know this up front, and then you'll be able to plan better on whether or not it's a good idea for you to go to your bank and take out some yen. I think it's a good idea to have a minimum of like 25,000 yen, or 29,000 yen, so you have some 1,000 yen notes, maybe a couple of 10,000 yen notes, a 5,000 yen notes, and maybe 4 1,000 yen notes. It just makes a lot of sense. And then you have the pocket change, you don't have to worry about it. You can get it from your bank. Typically, they don't have yen at local banks in the United States or in Australia or Europe. You have to, sometimes they do in the big cities, but you'll have to wait a couple of days as they order it and bring it in from their headquarters, and then you'll be able to get the yen. But if you've got time before your trip, might be a good idea to do something like that. Daniel's writing in here, he uses the Wise app and card. It was amazing. That's something I don't know much about. But I think you're going to get a lot of really good recommendations from the live chat and the comments below in this episode. Pesos here, if you have to change cash before leaving, shop around for better rates. Good advice. Here's a question for you guys that are watching right now that have been traveling to Japan more than me, because there's a lot of people watching. Is it better for you to change the money at the airport in your home country to yen, or when you get to Japan into yen? Which one gives you the more favorable rate? I would say when you arrive into Japan, probably would, but let me know what you guys think about that. Do you change the money in your home country before you get in to Japan or not? I'm curious to see. I have the Peso is pretty smart. The airport is the worst exchange in the U.S. Yamino Games. I would agree with that, and I think perhaps Japan has a better option for you there. There are money exchangers in Singapore. They have good rates. Again, like I think Singapore is a pretty fair place to exchange money. Never exchange at the counters at home airports. Never. You only do that if you need cash like right now, right away, and you can't wait. That's the only time. I never, only in smaller countries that don't have very strong currencies, and I'm not sure about the situation of the ATM, and I backpack quite a bit. That was the only time I really used those airport exchanges, and I exchanged just enough that I needed. And then I would have either friends or family in that country would guide me, but it was always useful to have some money, some local money, even though I was at a disadvantage exchanging it, because you don't want to rely on family and friends to pay for you. And you just don't know that sometimes if you have time to go to an ATM. Every country is different, but Japan is one of those places with pretty good services now. It wasn't like that 25 years ago. It's very much like that now. Never change at the airport. Train stations. I'm going to say I would not change money at any exchange booths anymore anywhere. Unless you're hard up for cash, you don't need cash right now. If you have a credit card, use that. It also keeps track of your purchases, and you can dispute the charges and all this other stuff. There's also insurance attached to it. I would just use the credit cards and be done with it. But if you do got to get out cash, maybe use your debit or ATM card and get it out of the machine, and try to avoid exchange booths at all costs. In general, that's my advice. But again, you're going to have to find something that works best for you. And I don't really need the glasses, and then you'll feel happy to have that cash in your pocket. Trust me, you want to have some Japanese yen. You don't need as much as you used to 10 years ago, but it's nice to have that cash just in case. Listen to this man. He is very smart. Atama ga ii. Well, thank you, Vasily. Do you mean me or peso? I just withdrew from 7-Eleven ATM for a 100 yen fee for every 10,000 yen. That's interesting. So it's 1% fee basically. So if you per 10,000 yen, it's interesting. So it could be less than 1% if you do 19,000 yen. Is that what you're saying? It's interesting. It's very interesting. I got one more question here, which we can address real quickly. Hi sir, I'm planning to rent a car and drive around the outskirts of Japan. Which part of Japan is best for driving outskirts at winter time according to your experience? Thanks for your kind reply. Renting a car is fun in Japan. I know a lot of people it's gonna be something that makes you nervous because you're driving, for some people, on the other side of the street. There's local traffic laws, but when you get out to the countryside, there's not a lot of traffic out there, and you'll be happy. It's almost like a video game in a way to me, because everything, the signs are foreign, the rest stops are foreign, the service areas are foreign. You can't see these places on a train. You can't see these places using a Shinkansen or a rail pass, and that's what makes it pretty special to rent a car. I think that Hokkaido is a wonderful place. I'm not sure about winter because it does get snowy and icy, but Hokkaido does a very good job of cleaning the highways. They're ready for it, okay? But just keep in mind that it's cold. It's below zero, and in the summertime, driving around Hokkaido is ideal. It's amazing. Very little traffic. It's very relaxing to be driving around there, and Hokkaido is a wonderful place because you got all that nature. Places are spread far apart, but you've got a lot of small towns that you can drive through. So you get a real feel for the Japanese countryside with a rental car. In the winter, I would say, like, Shikoku is a great place to drive, but there are too many places with these one-lane roads that scare the crud out of me. Like, you're winding, first of all, you're looking over the side, it looks like Nepal, where you could be going off of the Himalayas into a river, but they're one lanes, so you have to drive slow, and they have mirrors so you can see another car coming, but you can't trust that everybody's going to be looking. At least we should. It's a little bit scary in some places in Shikoku. Then there's the Chinkabashi, which very scary. These bridges with no side railings that are meant for floods of the river because it's not dammed up. You have to drive across those every now and then. So I would not recommend Shikoku. especially Kochi for driving, although it is adventurous. Kyushu is a lot better. I've driven around Kyushu quite a bit, and that island was made for driving, I think. The highways are great. Sometimes there's some volcano alerts around Aso-san, but I don't think it's really impacted the driving situation too much. Yeah, Kyushu is wonderful for driving around. I thought, you know, the Sea of Japan side is good. That Sanin area was pretty good for driving around a car. Wasn't a lot of traffic, but there are more drivers there than Kyushu. This is like out in the countryside though. The great thing, I usually use Toyota Rent-A-Car, but I found that the Times Rent-A-Car is a new player in the block. Times also does the parking spots around Japan, and they all have new cars, and I thought that was wonderful. They're very competitive, or sometimes cheaper than Toyota Rent-A-Car. The service is really good. I always get the max insurance because you just never know. And the cars were clean and returned and very little fuss. In fact, I'm in and out faster with the Times Rent-A-Car than I am the Toyota Rent-A-Car, but there's just something about the Toyota ones. Those cars are better maintained, and you can tell. They're cleaner. Japanese car agencies, some of them are not very clean. Some of them are you get what you pay for. Some of them are like cars bought at auction. And then there's Toyota Rent-A-Car, which are like all new, all very well maintained. You don't get an issue. I like to get the mini SUVs, the sub SUVs. They're the ones, I guess we call them Rise, R-A-I-Z-E. I like that car. It's not a hybrid, but it's got a lot of space. You're higher up off of the ground, and you feel like you're in an SUV, but it's like a micro SUV. There's a lot more space than the other cars, like a Prius, for example. Although the Prius is, I don't like the Prius, to be honest with you, because you can't see very well out of that back window. I much prefer to have the Rise, which is affordable. If you go for the RAV4 in Japan, it's more than double the price per 24 hours than the Rise. So it's hard to justify the cost of that. But I would say Kyushu. You know, just driving around Mount Fuji is also kind of fun. There's not a lot of traffic around Mount Fuji. If you get a rent-a-car at Fuji Station, for example, get off the Shinkansen, get a rent-a-car at Fuji, you should be fine. It takes you about 5 minutes to get out of the city, and then you're out in the forest, you know, you're out in the countryside. There's very few traffic lights around the backside of Mount Fuji, for example. It's mostly forests and rural places, and very relaxing, you know, driving around back there. Yeah, Times is pretty good. Times is pretty good. Nissan Rent-A-Car, there's hits and misses with that. Honda has a Rent-A-Car, but they don't have very many locations. Nippon Rent-A-Car is not bad. They have more selection, but I found they had the cars weren't as clean as the Toyota ones, or as well maintained. Oryx is pretty good. They've been a lot of locations, but the fleet of cars that they have are sometimes a little bit older and not as much fun to drive. Tohoku is also really good for rental car driving, but maybe not in winter. Again, it probably snows up in Aomori more than it does in Hokkaido, if you can believe that. So I don't know. Aomori is really, really snowy. The Tohoku Expressway is really snowy. But the downside for renting a car are the costs. Gasoline, a little expensive. The highway tolls, maybe one of the highest in the world. I'm going to be driving to Hakuba at the end of this month. The highway tolls just to get to Hakuba are about 9,000 yen, which is, what is that? It feels like $90 to me, because 100 yen to a dollar, it feels like that because I make a yen. So what is that, like $60 or something to drive to Nagano, plus the gas, so plus the rental car. So you need more than one person to make it work, but the flexibility and freedom of having the rent-a-car sometimes is the adventure. Just saying that. You can make sure you have an ETC card, which you can also rent from the rent-a-car agencies. The Toyota Rent-A-Car has an ETC card. In Greece, to get out of a tiny car compared to Tokyo, it would take 30 minutes, probably from Athens. Yeah, Athens is big. There's still access to the hidden shrine. Just go the other way. They try to block off the street from one side, just go around the back the other way. You shouldn't have any problem. How about renting an RV like the one you and Peter did? I forget the name of the company. CR, I think it was called. CR Campers. They were really good. I think I think you should have experience driving an RV in your own country before you decide to rent an RV in Japan. I really think that if you're not used to driving really large trucks, it's a different skill. Although renting it from Chitose Airport, when you leave, there's no traffic. You go straight onto the highway. There's like a couple of lights before you get on the expressway, and then you can get your bearings and feel comfortable driving. So Chitose Airport has always been a really good one to get the rent-a-car. All of the rent-a-cars are in this like one pavilion area that's away from the airport, which makes it ideal for new drivers. Again, it was great for me to get my first motorcycle experience from Chitose because there's, again, no traffic, very few lights. You go straight on the expressway. and then once you get on the expressway, it's just, you just go straight. Yeah. You can also, Tokyo, that's another episode I'll be doing very soon in the future. But Tokyo's got these ride sharing things now going on. There's a bunch of stuff happening in this space with rental cars. So this won't be the last time we talk about this. There'll be a lot more in terms of rental cars because this is a new way for people to get around. If you've got a lot of luggage, this is the ideal way because, you know, you put your stuff in the trunk and then you're done with it. So, are there one-way streets like there are in the US? Yes, there's one-way streets in Tokyo. You can get in trouble if you don't know some of the streets. And all right, this is my warning to you. Google Maps sometimes doesn't know about the one-way streets. That's an issue. So sometimes Google will tell me I can take a left onto the expressway because maybe some bad drivers have done that in the past. So Google says that you can do that, but if a cop sees me do it, I will definitely be getting a ticket, like taking a left, and going onto the expressway. There's a couple of very questionable Google Map things. You have to use your head with Google Maps, all right? See the route and do your homework and then use your head. If it says turn left off of a bridge when you're in the center of the bridge, don't do that, right? And sometimes, yeah, that's right. The Google Maps will pronounce the words in Japanese incorrectly. It's a little creepy. What was the one? In Sato, it butchered so many of the location names. It was just funny, but that's part of travel. If you choose if you have to choose the Japanese voice, I think, to get the Japanese pronunciation. But yeah, the sign's written there, so you kind of figure out where it's going. But if you look at the map of Japan right here, I'll put it on the right side. The Hokkaido's up in the red. Very little traffic. A lot of fun to drive up there, but I don't know if that's for the winter. Kyushu is the gray area down in the south. The purple area is Shikoku. I would just stick with the prefectures on the top part. Kochi is a little bit too rural and too mountainous to drive in for beginners, I think. I would say the green area is around the Tokyo area. Besides Tokyo, I don't see a lot of issues there, but between how do I put this? So between Tokyo and Osaka and Kobe is very industrialized, a lot of traffic, and you're gonna have a lot of stress to drive in that area. So I hope that this is useful. Again, we're gonna be discussing rental cars again in the future. Hey, Maui Man is here, aloha. Your work is appreciated, keep safe, mahalo, thank you. Aichi is okay, but again, it's very crowded, it's very industrial. There's a lot more people in Aichi Prefecture, and the traffic out of Nagoya can be as bad as Tokyo. Tokyo's pretty bad. Osaka and Tokyo are really bad. Nagoya is maybe a little bit better, but it's not that much better. I think Tokyo's Shutoko, which is the expressway, I've been driving the Shutoko now for years. It still scares the crap out of me because people are going 80 kilometers an hour. It looks like a video game because you're in a tube, which is real narrow, above ground. They built this in 1963 before the Olympics to try to get the infrastructure out, and it was thought out fairly well, but not that well. And so there's a lot of zigzags because you're following what used to be a riverbank. So you're going 80 and no one is going the speed limit, which is what, like 50? Everyone's going 80. So I'm going the slowest. There's a line of people behind me. The other lane, there's people zipping by even faster. It's scary. I'm happy once I leave Shinjuku or get past the Skytree. If I'm going up on the Joban Expressway, if I'm going the Tomei Expressway, I'm happy after I get past, what is that interchange in Kanagawa? Once I get past there, the traffic is pretty clear. shot past Mount Fuji, getting down to Nagoya, but Ebina service area, where they are famous for some meronpan. Every service area has some sort of famous food that's well known for. The shutoko has been used in video games. Yeah, that's the one where you feel like you're driving, and in Tokyo, I feel like I'm in a video game when I drive the shutoko, but it's also scary as hell, because if you miss your exit, you don't know where you're gonna get off, because you're gonna be getting off in the middle of Tokyo somewhere where there's one-way streets going left and right. You just don't know. If you don't know the area, it's a little intimidating. Yeah, I have to be honest with you. It's a little intimidating. Aiken, if you think it's fun, more power to you, brother. I don't think this gray hair did not exist before I was a licensed driver, which is a true thing. Probably not because of the driving, but. Hey, Shahid, thank you. A new welcome, new traveler. So we see an Aosagi bird going by here, looking for fish. Summer is officially over, in my mind. It feels very much like autumn right now, and the humidity is still there, but it's way down compared to just 3 weeks ago. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Wakarimashita. Hi. This guy was, he's cleaning the park. Let's move on over here. Sorry about that. No kayaking. I've done that in the past. You can see the Aosagi bird. Oh, he flew away. And there he is. Beautiful. Although I don't know if this water is really that clean, bro. Tokyo has really cleaned up compared to like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the 1980s. You can tell it's still got a ways to go, but it's good stuff. Satrio, member for 48 months. All right, everybody, that's all I got for you today. Unknown Soldier, love your videos, been in Japan since 2011. I love seeing your perspective on Japan. Well, Unknown Soldier, where are you living right now? 2011, if you were here for the earthquake, you've been through a lot then. That's the year that the Great Tohoku earthquake hit. A lot of stuff. We didn't see a lot of people moving into Japan in 2011. Most people were getting out of Japan, to be honest with you. That was a pretty rough year. I got here one day before the quake. Oh my goodness. That's when, oh my goodness. That bird is called a lesser egret. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. I think they call them Aosagi here. Now, so we can turn around here. My first quake was, so your first earthquake was the 2011 earthquake. That's crazy. That's not a good one to, you know, bust your cherry on, if you know what I mean. My welcome to Japan gift. Enjoy your day. Thank you, Aiken, and thank you, Aiken, as well. By the way, I've been trying to install your bicycle gadget on the front of it. It's taking a little bit of time. I had to buy some tools. We'll see if we can get some bicycle streams while the weather is a little bit nicer. I appreciate that. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you in another live stream tomorrow. I want to talk about. I might talk about some political stuff. It's not like overly political, but as you see in the politics of Nippon Steel and the US Steel, there's a lot of stuff going in the Japanese news about Nippon Steel and US Steel. If US Steel is not bought out by Nippon Steel, I don't know what they're going to do, because neither the Biden administration nor the Trump administration has done a lot of stuff to modernize and be competitive, because there's not enough steel production from US Steel to even do 10% of the steel construction needs of the United States. Like, it's quite low down on the thing. So I'm curious to see what the Japanese news is talking about over the next couple of days, and how this has become so politicized, because it's like an ally. I don't get it, but I sort of get it. I don't know. It's interesting stuff. All right, matane.